when you go too fancy, when you go overboard and it doesn't resonate with an audience, it kind of then makes you just sound like you're pompous. And whilst that's great for other trainers to learn from, that's not your audience. So make it resonate with them and you'll actually get a better authority with them.
Welcome to the Wear, Wag, Repeat podcast. I'm Tori Mystic. As a dog mom lifestyle expert, blogger, and business owner, I love talking to other women in the pet industry and sharing their advice with you every week. Sit, stay, and listen to the latest episode. In this episode, I am sharing a conversation with Ali Smith of Rebarkable. Ali is a dog trainer who has relocated to Maryland from the UK. She's been able to use blogging and a smart search engine optimization strategy to maintain her business no matter where in the world she is. Ali explains that content marketing through blogging and social media is your way to get in front of your ideal audience. Many petpreneurs think that Instagram is the only way to do that. But did you know that according to consumers, information found through search engines is believed to be more trustworthy than info found on social media? That makes blogging and SEO essential for pet industry pros. In addition to content marketing strategy, Ali also talked to me about working with reactive dogs and how to draw the line between giving away free advice on her blog and charging for dog training. This is my favorite kind of conversation because it is equal parts business and dogs. Speaking of, if you would like to connect with more women who love to talk shop with their pets by their sides, Wear, Wag, Repeat Society will be opening back up to new members in April. Get on the waitlist now at wearwagrepeat.com/society. And when you join, you'll get access to all past lessons, including how to write better captions, creating a lead magnet to get pet parents on your email list, blogging for SEO with guest expert Amy Lynn, and you'll be able to participate in April's website peer audits. It is going to be really fun. I can't wait. So get on the waitlist now at wearwagrepeat.com/society. All right, now on to the interview with Ali. Ali Smith is a multi-award-winning trainer and the founder of Rebarkable. Her blog has been named the best pet blog for 2 years running, and she helps dog owners across the world to improve their lives with their dogs. Hi, Ali. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Tori. Thank you so much for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, you sound, by the way, just have the perfect podcasting tone. You sound so good.
Well, I hope so. I've got everyone loves a British accent, I find, in America, so that sort of instantly ingratiates me with people. But yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, we're instantly like, she's so smart and just fancy.
Oh no, not necessarily. don't make that association because there's plenty of Brits who aren't. I can promise you that.
Well, so why don't we just dive in and tell everyone a little bit about what Rebarkable is, and if there was kind of a dog or a story that inspired you to start working in the pet industry.
Okay, so Rebarkable is essentially an online learning resource for dog parents, and I do as much as I can for free, which is done primarily in written content, and I've started introducing, or I will be starting to introduce, some video content and some audio content, which I'm sure you're aware of how to do. Yeah, so that's kind of my main goal, because I find that, like, a lot of the time we don't necessarily know where to start as dog parents, and that does come from my starter journey with my boy Indy. Indy is a German Shepherd Cross. He is 4 years old. He'll be 5 this year, and yeah, we've been through a ride. I will tell you that. So I bought Indy off a backyard breeder who I didn't know at the time was a backyard breeder, because I did that traditional thing of, oh my God, I've got my first house. I'm now going to get my first dog, because that's what dog lovers do. And I think he just heard his name if you heard him whine in the recording there. So yeah, I did that. Found out, essentially, I made every effort to make sure I got everything right. But his poor breeding went against me. And at around a year old, he developed reactivity. And I looked through all the trainers in the local area, and between what I could actually afford and what was offered, I couldn't find anything that matched up. Because the cheap trainers used methodologies that I wasn't going to be on board with, and the expensive trainers who were using all the stuff I could actually go forwards with, were far out of my budget. So I found it was more efficient to train myself to train my dog. And that's how I ended up where I am now. So he was my first project, essentially. He was my first one that I put all of that knowledge into.
Yeah, that's so... What a good story. No, you're good. How's Indy doing today?
He is massively better. We had there's odd little times that something will surprise either me or him, and then it will go wrong. But last week-ish, we had a Labrador totally run loose out of their garage. They were on a lead, but owner wasn't on the other end of the lead. And came running straight up to his face, and he just looked there and went, I don't like that. And he raised a lip as though to say, go away, which is fine. He didn't go into his old routine of bark, lunge, get it before it gets me. So, I deemed that as a massive success at the time.
Yeah. And so in your dog training business with your clients, do you focus on reactive dogs, or do you kind of target a more broad audience?
I love working with reactive dogs. I think that's where my passion is. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I've kind of got two, because I love working with puppies, because it gives you that opportunity to minimize and or avoid issues. Or I love working with them when they've actually got that barrier, I suppose, because it's essentially just that they can't deal with the real world. They can't deal with the world that we live in. And once we can get them over that hurdle and show them the right way to deal with their problems, I mean, I often liken it to, the bully in the playground when you were little, who thinks with his fists or expresses his emotions with his fists or her fists, whoever's fists. They're that kid. They just need to be given an appropriate way to say or communicate what they're feeling. So
yeah. They just don't know. When I first brought Bert home a couple of years ago, and even still to this day, I'm like, he just didn't know. He never. I don't know if he ever lived in someone's house. So he just didn't know that you weren't supposed to open the cabinet and help yourself to snacks.
Don't. I've got two coonhounds that are like that still. They have their moments, and you sort of look at them and go, okay, that's what we're doing, is it? That's today, is it? Okay, let's roll with it and let's see how far we get.
Yeah. Well, so communicating to the dogs is one thing, and that requires a lot of skill and intuition and training as well. But communicating with the actual pet parents is more challenging, I think.
Can be.
Yes. And so you do a lot of different kind of content marketing, I would consider, through your blogging and your upcoming podcast and social media and all that kind of stuff. So talk to us a little bit about your blogging strategy, because I think a lot of dog trainers do not blog at all, or they're like, what would I even blog about? Which, I mean, there's 5 million topics.
Oh, don't. Isn't there just? and it's actually really important information for a dog trainer to share.
Yes.
So content marketing to me is essentially your way of getting in front of your ideal audience via channels. And those channels can be social media or they can be search engines. And I know you're a massive fan of Pinterest as a search engine. And I'm a massive fan of Google. I love getting Google to essentially rank me nice and highly so that people find information easily. Because I think it was the Edenman Trust Barometer turned around and said that anything that does well on search engines is actually more trustworthy than anything, or to an audience at least, is more trustworthy than anything they'll see on social media. And it's like almost double the amount of trust, which in like history's lowest period of trust ever is really important. And it's quite
that's interesting. I've never heard anyone talk about like we're living in the lowest time of trust.
Yeah. I mean, but it's not surprising, is it? Like all of these things. And we know that social media will prioritize content similar to what we've liked before. So it kind of reinforces an idea. And if that idea is not necessarily the correct idea, then we're right to have that skepticism. We're right to sit there and go, oh, maybe I shouldn't trust everything that goes on social media. That's totally correct. Whereas Google and some other search engines, I mean, I know Google the best, so please forgive me for using Google as the word. I'm going to use it.
Well, it's kind of the king.
Yeah, it is. And it's the one that everyone focuses on, so it's the one I focus on. But Google kind of like has, I don't know how it does it, but it validates you depending on your expertise. So if you are a random person who has nothing to do with dog training and you're trying to give your opinion on dog training, you won't be ranked as highly as a professional trainer. So it's definitely an interesting concept, because that way it kind of pushes out the rubbish. If you kind of filter out the opinions and the I suppose sort of what's the word? Not conspiracy theory.
Yes.
You push out the conspiracy theories and you bring in the facts, which is beneficial for anybody, right? So I think it makes sense why it's more trusted.
Yeah. And so what are, in your mind, what are some ways that dog trainers can build that authority with Google?
So part of it is media coverage. Media coverage is well valued by Google, and that sort of links into domain authority and linkbacks and things like that, which all kind of give you a stance and a position of like authority. So not only will, say, media coverage get you authority with people generally, because when you can go, I've appeared in Bloomberg, I've appeared in Business Insider, I've appeared in this, that, and t'other, it translates directly there, but indirectly on Google. So it's really handy to have stuff like that. And this is going to sound backwards to any trainer, but say it in a way that people can understand. Don't say it in trainer talk, because there is this instinct and that you have to fight that goes, oh, I want to talk about all the science behind it. I want to talk about all the fancy language and use it all in that blog post. Don't, because the regular person is just like, what do you mean that they like the kill bite part of the predatory motor pattern? And what does that actually mean for my dog? And it's like, essentially they like to chew on a ball, is kind of what that means. And that example is directly related to Indy. But when you go too fancy, when you go overboard and it doesn't resonate with an audience, it kind of then makes you just sound like you're pompous. And whilst that's great for other trainers to learn from, that's not your audience. So make it resonate with them and you'll actually get a better authority with them. So
yeah, and breaking it down into short sentences.
Yes.
And just making it so easy. Like I've always kind of followed that you should write things for third grade comprehension level, because and a lot of times, like I think probably over 60% of people are on mobile devices now.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not necessarily really in the right mode to read this in-depth article. They want to just kind of get the bullet points of what you're talking about.
Yeah. So headers are really important. Making it, like you just said, readability so that they can scan read through things is big. I mean, these are fine points, and I'm pretty sure if your content's really valuable and really resonates, it's less of a problem. Because somebody who's interested in what you've got to say will read it regardless of whether it's well formatted or not. But if you want to get a mass audience, and if you want to start pushing it out to more and getting a message to more people, then yeah, you've got to make it as easy as possible for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So talk to us a little bit about, so you moved from the UK to Maryland, right?
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, you basically, people would think you're starting from scratch as a dog trainer. How are you going to get customers? A whole, not even like a new area, but a new country.
Oh yeah.
And a whole different can of worms. So how has your blog, or has it impacted how you have grown your business or continue to run your business moving across the world?
So I did blog with my old dog training, dog walking company in the UK. And that was kind of where I sort of cut my teeth, if you know what I mean. That was where I learned how to do it and how to resonate with an audience. And when I sort of looked at relaunching in the States, I kind of sat there and went, how do I do this in a way that I can be free to move? Should I need to?
Again.
Yes, exactly. And a big part of that went online. And, with COVID, a lot of people went, oh, let's go online. So I kind of timed it wrong, but, these things happen and we're doing okay. So, but it became like this aspect that I was like, I want to reach as many people as I can. I want to keep my UK audience, but I want to grow an American audience. And I felt that the easiest way to do that was with content. And, that way I can give people resources. And there's nothing worse than like when somebody comes to me as a trainer and goes, hey, I'm absolutely skint, which, broke, the English coming out there. I'm broke at the moment and I can't afford a trainer and I just don't know what to do with my 8-month-old pit bull that's developed this thing. Can you help? And I'll go, not unless you pay me. There's nothing worse than my being like saying to somebody, I can't help you unless you fork out money. And that to me is not what I'm here to do. So I want to give people a resource where they can learn for themselves and learn from a reputable source and learn from my mistakes and put that knowledge into practice as best they can. And that was where the blog came in. So now, as opposed to just going, no, I can't help you unless you pay me, I can go, well, I can't give you bespoke advice for your situation, but here's some content that should help you. And I feel like that makes it doesn't sting as much. And that way, you can bring them to you and bring them into your audience and welcome them into your world and keep them there for another time that they might need help and they do have budget for it, and yeah, because it's tough, isn't it? We all live in a world where money's not as...
Yeah, you never know like who you're helping with your free content and they grow to love you and they sign up for your email list and you build this relationship with them and they really trust you and they talk you up to their friends. Yes. And maybe their friends have more money to spend.
Exactly.
And so you never know. But yeah, you're right. We are here to make a difference. So you want to help people. And I mean, I get that so much. So how do you, I guess, the question that I can just sense the listeners thinking about is how do you know when to stop giving it away for free and when to be charging? Like what's the difference?
So it's a very hard tipping point, isn't it? You sort of go, okay, now's too much, and you instinctively know it, but what you have to do is kind of learn from experience for you when is right for you, because when's right for me is not necessarily going to be the same as what it is for you, Tori, and it won't be the same for your listeners either. So for me personally, I get like, I don't want to say resentful, but it is you're taking up a huge amount of my time that I need to be focusing on other things, and I can't physically afford to do this for you for free. Because, we've got bills to pay at the end of the day, and this is, it's not a hobby. If we were all millionaires and we didn't have to worry about that, it would be a different story. But we do have a business to run, and there is a point where that practical element comes in. And for me, I find that if I bombard them with free content, they'll either go and deal with it, come back with a couple of questions, and I can answer those. But beyond that, it's a case of, right, I'm really sorry, but now would be chargeable time. And I can't give you anything more bespoke than what I have already. Because I'm happy to facilitate somebody's learning experience about their dog, but I just can't physically afford to do it all for free.
Right. So when it comes to like personal advice for their dog, that's kind of where the line in the sand is, give or take.
Yeah. I'll give a couple of questions as opposed, like, if they want clarity on something, but beyond that, it's like when it becomes personalized that it has to change.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah. No, that's great advice. Well, and I think, so my next like follow-up question is talking about charging and revenue streams and stuff as a dog trainer. How have you been able to set up like different revenue streams so that you're not basing yourself all off of one thing, off of like one-on-one sessions or something?
Okay. So I do a little bit of freelance writing for other media companies. So I do I work a little bit with Daily Pause. I've done some stuff for Mashable, and I'm exploring other avenues as we all do. And then I do some sponsored posts, which are usually gear reviews. And I love doing those because not only does it mean I can get my hands on a new piece of kit that I can then sort of play around with and figure out and use for my training audience, but it means that I can put it into a proper review that I can stick onto the blog. It makes great content for people and gives them honest feedback, because that, I will say, is very important with the sponsored post. It still has to be honest. And all of my clients know that if there's bad points, I'm going to point them out. Because A, it's learning for them, and B, it still means that the consumer has the power to decide if that's something they're okay with. So that's another revenue stream. Then I've got some online courses, and I do a little bit of in-person work as well as one-to-ones online. But I try and minimize the in-person stuff because I'm very much trying to make this as online as possible. Yeah. So
we were talking like
the bulk of it.
We were a bit like before, and you kind of touched on this a little bit, but like how you are trying to be primarily online, just in case. Like, we don't know in today's world. I think we've all learned so much in the past couple of years, but you don't know if you're going to move or have or be stuck in your house for a while or something like that. So it is important to have that kind of freedom of an online business.
It is, yeah. For me particularly, because as you said, I've moved from the UK, which means I've left family in the UK. It means I've left family in Ireland. It means my other half's family is in Texas. And it means that everybody is like a minimum of a 4-hour plane ride away from us. So that then becomes what happens if things don't go to plan. And I don't necessarily want to put my business on a total hold because I've got to fly to England, or because I've got to go see my grandmother, or we've got to go see my husband's mother. And that to me is like business continuity. So if I can continuously run my business without hiccups from Texas, Ireland, England, wherever, it means that I've got total freedom to do what I need to do without any potential wrinkles in that. So that's kind of why I've set up the way I have. And that's a real deliberate choice for me.
Yeah. And I think that's where your blogging strategy kind of comes in to, create posts that are informative and helpful to all dog owners and not just targeting local keywords and things like that.
Yeah. And that for anybody who does do like local services, you do definitely want those localized, that localized post. Because they're really, really valuable for finding the right people. But yeah, so the more global strategy is slightly more general, but it does then mean that I'm competing with some rather large names, which is sometimes not the most fun thing, but I can always put a different spin on it than somebody else. So
yeah. Well, and I think another thing just quickly is that you are going to be launching your own podcast.
Yeah, I am.
And that's another kind of different way to reach people. I know a lot of people have started podcasts in the last couple of years, but primarily most people don't have their own podcast. So that's a really excellent way to kind of stand out. What will your show be about?
So it's going to be shockingly about dog training. And it's, at the moment, I'm kind of doing a lot on reactivity because that's, again, a big passion of mine. And it's something I feel like we can, regardless of whether you're a reactive dog owner or not, you can still learn a lot about it because it's, if I know every reactive dog owner out there, and anybody who's listening to this who has a reactive dog will be massively grateful for anybody who can be just a smidge more considerate in the park when they're trying to do things, So it's not an under-talked about problem, but it's something that if more dog owners have an awareness of, we can make bigger strides with, dogs who are struggling.
Yeah.
So
my dog Lucy, like ever since I got Bert, she's been a little bit more leash reactive. And even there's some trails that we have where they're allowed off leash, and all the dogs are off leash there, and everyone's pretty much moving and walking around, not standing in one place, which I like and they like. But she kind of I think that Lucy thinks that Bert cannot handle himself, and she's not wrong. He would not
sorry
know.
to laugh, but it's a bit of a Labrador thing, isn't it? They can be a little bit like, oh, I didn't know that's what you meant when you growled at me.
Yeah, and Bert would be like, oh, you have candy in your van? I'll get in. And so Lucy is not wrong to be kind of on the offense for him, but it's something that's developed as an adult. And I wouldn't consider her a reactive dog because it's just very specific, isolated things. But in understanding all of that, I just have so much more compassion, I think, for people because in her limited reactions, I encounter people who are like, oh, somebody has an attitude problem or she's not very nice. I'm like, she is nice. It's just, she doesn't know how to handle.
You've just pushed her buttons right now.
How to handle her emotions. And she's just a little nervous. Yeah. And you do, it really does make you more compassionate towards other people.
Absolutely. When Indy was first going through this and I first went through muzzle training with him and he was in a muzzle in the park. And it's such a simple thing, but a mother or a child asked their mother, Mummy, why has that dog got a cage around his mouth? And her response was, because he's a bad dog. And when you're like, no, he's just a dog that's really struggling right now. And I'm trying to protect him from making a mistake. It's not, it's not that he's a bad dog. It's just that he doesn't know how to do things right, and that broke my heart. And a little bit of consideration in some of those moments would make a world of difference.
Well, so, I just immediately am thinking some people put their kids on leashes.
No, I know.
And it's not because they're bad kids. It's just because they're runners.
Yeah, exactly. And it's if you can prevent something from happening, you're going to prevent it from happening. Yeah. That's the responsible thing to do, right? So, there's an awful lot of judgment, I find. And then that stigma becomes a stigma for you because it makes you less wanting to go out and less wanting to put a muzzle on them, even though that's the safe thing to do.
Yeah, because you don't want to hear the comments and the looks and stuff. Yeah.
And there's all sorts of stuff like that I feel like just a smidge of like, I don't want to say education because it sounds really sort of pompous, but a little bit of insight can change people's minds so much. So that's kind of what I'm trying to help people with at the moment.
Well, you're doing amazing work. You're helping so many people, Ali. So tell everyone where can they find your blog and your social media and everything.
Okay, so the blog is over on rebarkable.com, and that's like my real passion project at the moment, as you can probably tell. And the social media, my main platform is Instagram, so that's at rebarkable because somebody had nabbed my name, and that was the best I could do. So that's where you can find me mainly on socials.
Okay, perfect. And we'll put all these links to Facebook, Twitter, everything else in the show notes. People can come and find you. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge with us.
Not a problem. Thank you very much for having me. I was delighted to hopefully give your audience something to learn from.
Yeah, it was fantastic. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks.
What did you like most about this episode? Find me on Instagram at TMystic and let me know what intrigued you or what questions you have about starting or growing your own dog-inspired business. You can also screenshot this episode and tag me in your stories. I love to see who is listening out there. Some of the best conversations happen after the episode, right? So track me down over on Instagram or join the Wear, Wag, Repeat Labs Facebook group to connect with other dog-obsessed entrepreneurs. And as always, you can find all the links and resources discussed in this episode at wearwagrepeat.com/podcast. See you back here next week.